Good evening and welcome. Nerdarchy Dave here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and as always, I'm hanging with this nerd.
Nerdarchy is dead.
Ted, I think you shifted in your box. God damn
Ah.
it! you're to the side now.
Oh
Um,
no.
to you're far to the right, but you're still in there, so it's all
All
good.
right.
They can still see you.
Excellent.
Oh no, I'm hearing things I don't want to hear myself. God damn it! I thought I muted that tab. I bet I unmuted it.
You apparently did not.
Yeah, well now it's definitely muted. Next time I will mute you with a sledgehammer.
So this is our Patreon hangout for all of you awesome people out there who decide that you really want to be truly a part of the Nerdarchy family. And as always, it's because of you guys and gals out there that we're able to do what we do. So a big hearty thank you for being there.
I see you have a bit of a mascot with you this evening, Ted.
I do. Long time ago, I want to say 2015, a Kickstarter
Was it in a
happened.
galaxy far, far away?
No, it was in this one.
Uh,
Uh but it was a Kickstarter for the amazing behemoth that you see before me. Dungeon Crawler Studios, and I missed the shipment notification. So this little awesome beauty, or I don't know if little actually describes this guy accurately, as he's on a colossal 8x8 base. But he showed up on my doorstep Friday, and I've been pretty giddy since. His uh, his brother with an alternate paint job happens to be behind my laptop over there. But this guy was the Kickstarter exclusive that I wound up getting, and I'm pretty happy.
now you have a Tarrasque of your own.
Now I have a Tarrasque of my own, should I ever decide to unleash it upon my players. And now the red dragon off to my right is not the only colossal miniature that I can feel.
Well, you've got three of them, right? You've got two behemoths now, which are technically Tarrasque, I guess. You've
Right?
got you've got the Kraken,
Oh, that's right. The Kraken up behind me here.
and then you've got the colossal red dragon. So you've got literally four different colossal critters that you can throw down. Although to this day, to this date, the colossal red dragon still is the most impressive mini that I've seen.
Well, the colossal red dragon is pretty darn awesome, but I am very happy with the behemoth. And the Kraken that's here is also by Dungeon Crawler Studios as well. So they've put out twice the miniatures in the colossal range that WizKids has.
But yeah, I actually also I don't know that was WizKids, was it the original?
Yeah,
Uh, okay, so also when I say impressive, I mean just sheer size because even though they're all colossal, the colossal red dragon is still significantly bigger, I believe. Now, I haven't
he,
seen them all next to each other, but because the behemoth is amazing looking, it looks really nice.
there we go. They're all on the table now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, see, so it's still significantly
So
larger.
he's taller.
Yeah,
And he's got the wings, which if you put wings on the behemoth, then I think he's there. But the behemoth has got
he's
quite a massive tail to extend out. He's crouching forward, so he's down, and he's also got a tongue that my son kind of put on the battle mat to try and be like, well, if we stretch this thing out, it actually goes like 14 squares. So if I were to actually use that as a use that this monster on the field with the tongue, this thing would have a grapple attack that he could hit you from 70 feet away.
that's insane.
So it would actually fix some of the issues that some people have with the Tarrasque and range.
Yeah, the Tarrasque from the book does require a little bit more creativity on the DM's part in order to use them effectively because it's a monster that's easy to kite with a
Right.
DM that can't go beyond the stat block because literally you can just keep outranging it. But that being said, personally, if a player tried doing that with me, I would just have the Tarrasque grab hunks of earth and hurl them at them and do damage as per probably by level or something.
Right. Well, as a 30 strength monster that the Tarask has, it certainly has that kind of capacity to do that kind of stuff.
To hit you with a building.
And I and I would totally just be like, all right, forget this nonsense. He's going full Hulk jump on you, and oh, that distance you think he can normally just walk. Yeah, he flies much farther than that and lands in your midst. I'm not gonna let you, as you would say, kite through the encounter. Um,
I
but
wonder what is the actual. I forget what the jump rules are. I I think it's based off their strength number, right?
yeah,
So like, the Tarrasca jump like 30 feet or something ridiculous.
yeah, it's not impressive for a colossal sized miniature with a 30 strength. I'm sorry. It need you need to go full Hulk. You need to just be like, yeah, I can clear the city if I really need to. Um, and I'm not gonna be like, oh, it clears 40 feet this round and 40 feet next round. No, it's forget that.
So a couple things in the chat. Daverlo, which I know you phonetically spelled it for me last time, but I've already forgotten. Um, oh, 3 times the modifier. So a 90-foot jump, that's respectable. And that.
Well, if it's 3 times the modifier, then
Oh no, the
it would
modifier.
it would still be 30.
Yeah. Wah wah wah. Um, but Deverlo has Dave Erlo, I think that's what it was. Just started painting minis, fun times. Ted's a big fan of that. I've painted a mini, and I was like, now I can say I did it. Give me pre-painted minis any day of the week still.
I have besides my awesome new friend here, I just got my Bones 4 collection a week prior, so that's 400 miniatures for me to paint. So yeah, I'll be spending some crafting time going on. Uh,
So, oh right, I wanted to answer Doug's question.
sure.
What's the adventure called? James Intercosta wrote with the Tarrasque in it. It's actually Planet of the Tarrasque, I believe. I don't remember if that was a DM's Guild one or not, or if it's somewhere else. But I bet if you go to his World Builder website, you can definitely find it.
I'll have to go check that one out now that I've got a Tarrasque mini to play with or two.
So, speaking of James Intercosta, I was actually just listening to us on his Tabletop Babble podcast, which dropped today. So if you haven't checked that out, you can. And actually, we didn't sound too bad, man. I was like, we probably sound like morons. He's a he's doing some masterful editing there.
I'll have to make sure I give that a listen to.
So with that, we did have a GM91 that came in through the website.
All right, so I'm going to read this message. This is from Gabriel. I'm a first-time dungeon master who's been running a game for 10 to 11 months now with some buddies of mine. The level 9 party consists of a Null Barbarian, a Dwarf Cleric, a Giant Dwarf Paladin, world's worst dwarf, a Triton Arcanist, a Lizard Folk Monk, and a Warforged Summoner. The players are more experienced in the game than I, but it feels that the Barbarian and Arcanist used their experience and took advantage of my inexperience and made powerful characters with powerful items. This stems from my lack of knowledge of how wealth in the game works, and I gave them too much. Instead of being nice and correcting me, they made the most overpowered characters ever, and it doesn't help that they loot everything in sight, especially now that they are underwater fighting sea creatures from the books, and the homebrew monsters barely even pose a threat. They even loot cursed gold statues that are conduits for an evil god. They have too much gold and power, so what do I do? Do I make the cursed gold explode or affect their minds? I would really appreciate the help you can provide for my overpowered players and for the gold issue.
So based off of that, it doesn't sound like they're playing 5e. It may be a Pathfinder.
Yeah, that would have been my gathering as well, based on some of the terminology in there.
But that being said, I still feel like we could probably give some advice. One, one of the problems is I hear they picked really powerful items. So, one, you can't, obviously it's hard because you can't really go backwards. But, a big portion of what happened is it sounds like a Monty Hall campaign where they're getting stuff that maybe they shouldn't have yet, and they had the choice. And since this was a new GM, they really didn't. They probably didn't. Doesn't sound like they restricted them at all. But you know what? No, would be a great thing for them to maybe check out. Maybe that episode of Hall of Bones for the D&D cartoon that we kind of talked about and discussed, because you could take some of the concepts from there and depower their really powerful magic items. Gold statue cursed by evil gods. That would be a good way of doing it. And
So
go ahead, Ted.
no. Finish your thought.
Um, and so you don't take them away permanently, but make them work to get them back.
Another thought, kind of based off of other videos. We had done a video on the channel a while back about a similar kind of GM 911 experience where the players had too many magic items, and one of us on the video came up with the idea of there's this problem, and and the only way to solve it was to feed this relic magic items, and it permanently drained them. They were gone forever, but it was able to stop the cataclysm from happening, or it solved the quest or what have you. And the party would have to make a sacrifice of something's got to go, and you can't do all of this kind of stuff all the time. But when you've got people who are essentially abusing a new GM, like you got to pull the reins back. When I came up with my eyes character that we had done, and I know this is not magic item related, but the concept of the massive passive perception, it was a new GM. This was our first time playing, running a game, and like I asked her when I was like, okay, this is a bit much. Do you want me to play something else? And she's like, no, I'm fine with it. I'm just not going to do this. And I'm like, okay, well, let me know if you change your mind. I have no problem swapping out. But as a veteran player who respects the GM, yes, I can do that. So here's a way that the group in game can make a decision as to how they deal with this. A sacrifice has to be made. Otherwise, bad stuff's going to happen. What do we do? How do we deal with the problem?
The world is going to end. Oh, by the way, you live on it. So, and also, honestly, where you were really cool, like, in the sense that you didn't mean to do it.
Right.
You just had ability and you wanted to do it, and then you kind of saw the consequences, and you're like, hey, I can pull back the reins on this. It's not a big deal. Where this sounds like the opposite, where it sounds like these guys are just being D-bags, and they want to win D&D. So when that happens, then, as the GM, maybe you have to be a little bit more heavy-handed.
So the options, as I see it, you have got these cursed statues. All right, this can go in so many different directions. Number one, they have earned the ire of a god, and the things are cursed. So you know what? They don't know how, they don't know why, but gold just starts disappearing off of their out of their inventory. So every session, just tell them, oh, by the way, subtract this much, and whatever you feel is appropriate, 5,000, 10,000, 1,000, whatever is enough to be memorable, and then they have to figure it out. Same thing could be said with the magic items, and until they investigate and figure out that it's these statues that are behind it. Well, they're not. You can't just return them to where they came from. You have to solve the problem. This could actually lead you to this shrine or this massive mall of anti-magic, and in it they must feed these magic items to appease the problem. And yeah, it's gonna stink. They have to do whatever it is that you as a GM can figure out is going to be impactful enough to reduce them in power. And that's one avenue of thought. You also use areas of anti-magic. It's going to really stink for your spellcasters and it's going to nullify all of the magic items in the party. Okay, they're just down to whatever they have on them. It's not something you can dispel. It's not an area. It's not a spell that's going on. It's just in this spot. You got to go with what's on your character sheet. No magic items. No extra bonuses. Sorry, I don't care if it's a legendary magic item. It don't work here.
Also, if they're that powerful, beholder minion. So that you could just totally hit them with the cone of anti magic as you need to, as you want to. Now, all this too aside, right? I would encourage you as the GM to reach out to your players and talk to them. Be like, hey, this is really hard. I'm a new GM. Maybe maybe we should pull back some of these magic items, or drop down the levels or something, some kind of agreement. Whatever part is the part that is giving you a hard time, and see if you can't work it back there. Also, start introducing a lot of role playing scenes. Do more role playing in NPCs where where they're maybe their magic items and their uberly optimized characters aren't going to be as useful as what they are now. Make use different pillars of the game. If they don't have things for the exploration pillar, use exploration, use social interactions, create win conditions that are more than just beating the monster in order to win the day. Like Ted said earlier, artifact that eats magic items would be one, but there's others too, like rescuing the princess, but maybe it isn't a thing that you can fight to beat it per se. Maybe it's all traps and she's in the center of a dungeon without monsters, so they're constantly having to overcome traps or puzzles and riddles. Because how do you power game a puzzle or a riddle, especially if as the GM you're like, no, you can't roll it away, you have to solve these problems and puzzles. I'll give you hints and clues if you get good rolls, but I won't give you the answer.
Yeah, that's always a great thing, is to figure out what the party is weakest against. Again, this is Pathfinder, and I don't have a super amount of things. I don't have a super amount of experience, playing in it, but all of your generic, anything that offers a detriment. I know in my last game, I had given a decent amount of magic items for the level that they were at, and I decided I wanted to test them a little bit, and I put them in an area where the whole thing was darkness. Light didn't work; it was magical darkness. I didn't have any warlocks in the game that could see through magical darkness, so everything they did was at disadvantage, and it was a lot of fun. Dave realized that, wow, there's a lot of spells that say at a target that you can see, this stinks.
I think Nate realized it first. Being a cleric, it was even worse for him.
So it offers a lot of limitations. So when you figure out, what is the character's weaknesses, how can I make things more challenging? Even in that, those are combat, situations. But suppose, like, you look through their skill list and, hey, wow, they don't really have a whole lot in this area. Well, make that be super critical on what they have to do, and make it be tied to that plot that they have to solve. Otherwise, more bad stuff is going to happen. And you can't be optimized everywhere. It's not feasible.
Also, I would peruse the cursed magic items in the DMG, and if this is a super, kind of uber cursed statue thing, then pick some of your favorites and mix and match a little.
And if they've got multiple, then you could have several effects going on all at once, and that's pretty harsh.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just a handful of things you can kind of play with, but again, I will reiterate, please just start with a conversation, see if you guys can all just be decent human beings to each other, and then if that doesn't work, kill them all.
and with that, I mean, you can create power level characters equal to what they can do. Don't give them more magic items. Just give them powers equal to what those characters already have, and let them see what kind of fight they're up against, and then they might realize, well, maybe we don't want this to be as challenging. Maybe we want to, find a way to go back to regular Pathfinder or regular D&D.
Send the ye old fantasy version of the IRS with, with their notepad and their abacus, and be like, oh well, I see that's one artifact, and hit them where it hurts, take them down with taxes.
So,
Davo, at first you don't succeed, TPK the party.
so Gabriel, I hope that's good enough advice and give you some things to work with. Oh, really?
What do you really? Did you get booted out?
I got booted out of the chat again. I don't know why this happens. My devices don't like me.
My DM says if you can do it, so can I. That is also a great point as well. Also, maybe you could also use divine intervention and things like that as well. But there's definitely a lot of things. So this weekend we played in your game. That was fun. We got to we moved the plot a little bit further than I thought we were going to, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be a filler session, because we were down a couple players and we were kind of like in the middle, and you did the thing that I would usually do as well, and that's like, oh, the players that aren't here tonight, let's make the quest kind of about them, because because instead of just like poofing them out or just ignoring the situation, which I also think are perfectly viable options as well.
And as a general advice, thing, what I had done is we had ended last session with, okay, you guys are going to long rest. Now, I didn't do this on purpose. It was just because you guys were leveling. It felt like ideal. Just be like, look, you guys are going to be 5th level at the start of this session, so let's go ahead and give you a long, essentially demand a long rest, so that you knew like you'd have access to all of your new powers at the start of the next session. And I didn't give them an option. I didn't say, okay, well, what's the watch order? No, I decided that the 2 characters that weren't there, they had last watch, and something happened. So the first part of it, you guys got to go in and investigate, where the party went, and then make it hard for you to find the drag marks. You just said you look around. There was no roll. You found the drag marks, but there were no footprints from whoever was dragging. So that was the hint that, okay, these things flew. So when you went down into the hole, you found, a lair of sturges that were not the size of sturges you were expecting.
Giant sturges. Giant, I tell you. They were small instead of tiny.
No, and there were 2 that were medium.
Yeah. But still, man, that's a small, like 3 foot, 3 foot to 6 foot wingspan critter landing on you and attaching itself. That's no joke.
So if you happen to be a crafter and you get into painting, or crafting in general, over on DM Scotty's, the DM's Craft channel, he has a tutorial to make your own sturges. So between Friday afternoon and Saturday morning, I made 20 small sturges and 2 medium-sized sturges. And Saturday afternoon, after they were completely dried and ready to go, I made up stat blocks for them to, torture my players with. And, there was no fireballs, there was no sleep spells. So, what could have been a, easy one and done encounter wound up actually being a little tough for the players when, because sturges, man, once they hit, they just latch on.
It's because our cleric wasn't willing to fireball the room. And I can tell you they had at least 10 hit points each.
Yep.
So, how much did it cost to make all those?
Well, the hardest part to acquire from DM Scotty's video was the little leaves that would get used for the wings. everything that I used to make all 22 of those things, I already had. The 20 bases for the small sturges were just pennies painted black because they have a nice weight to them, and therefore they wouldn't fall over. The flight stand was just floral wire. The base of the mini is toothpicks, and then the body is bulked out with super glue.
And you made a total of 22?
And I made a total of 20 of the little ones.
And
The
two
big
of the big ones.
Two of the big ones I just used standard miniature bases for, as opposed to using toothpicks. I used meat skewers, which I again already had, and bigger floral leaves. But I mean, I've over the years I've collected a lot of different craft junk. Back in the day when we were playing HeroScape regularly, I had a whole bunch of stuff that I was working with. So what I used for the wings was all just cast-offs from that stuff. And I happened to have the exact same floral piece that DM Scotty called for to make the wings for the small sturges. So
now they went over pretty well over on Facebook and Instagram when I shared the pictures. People looked them. Some people actually knew where you saw the tutorial, like nice. Just from looking at them. And I just for the record, I just want to let you know that's about 20 federal counts of defacing of federal property. But just so you know.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw the book at you.
They're gonna throw the book at me for 20 cents.
For 20 pennies, yes. But they look great. They came out really well.
You know, I was very pleased with them. And you put them all out on the table, and you put them in a tight knit area where they can get to a player quickly. It can be really devastating. I was really shocked that I did not roll as well when attacking Emerald, because I really thought I was going to drop the cleric. When you ran, I'm like, oh no.
We call that a strategic withdrawal, buddy.
Well, you certainly earn your nickname Bolt.
Yeah. They thought it was because he uses a crossbow. Suckers.
He runs when things get hairy.
This is the first character that I'm playing that's an archer in probably years of regular play. I'm also playing another archer in another game right now, but that's still only a few sessions in and newer as well. But it's been a long time since I've played an archer character, and I must say they're fun.
No, they are.
Especially because you tend not to get hit because you're not where things are hitting you.
Yes, that can be a great joy of if you plan on being on the outskirts. You can do a lot with it. And when I played Eyes, it was definitely one of those things. And when you're the one with the super perception, you tend to be up front, but you're also able to disengage and withdraw and get to a safe location. And both those two characters are rogues, so you've got the ability to hide as a bonus action. So you can play a lot with that stuff.
And once again, I decided to multi-class, but I don't think I'm going to do more than one level dip. So I'm playing a fighter rogue in Ted's game, human character. The first time I think I've played a character where I've rolled stats in 5e as well.
And you rolled well.
I was very hesitant to roll for stats because dice don't always like me so much. But I got peer pressured into it. Our new player Sophie, she wanted to roll, and then Mark wanted to roll. So I was like, all right, if they're rolling, then I'll roll too. And I got really lucky because my total modifier after racial bonuses is like a +10. So I think what did we figure out? Is it +5 is the standard?
Yeah, I think so. So it's 2, 2, 1, 1, -1. Yeah.
Davo, I'm the reverse. Playing an Abjuration Wizard, Arcane Ward lets me be more of a mid-range caster, and I get my face punched frequently. Yeah, that's when unfortunately too. That's when you learn that your ward doesn't have nearly as many hit points as you want it to. especially at the higher levels where things are doing excessive amounts of damage.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's it's kind of the one of the reasons why I wanted to play the barbarian in the mini terrain domain game is after playing a cleric that's not supposed to be on the front line and constantly getting dropped. It's like, this is not good. But then again, my barbarian is so spread out with his stats that he doesn't have a high dexterity. He doesn't have as high a con as he should. But I mean, he's got a 13 wisdom and a 13 charisma.
Nice. Mountain dwarf.
Yeah.
What has he got? A lot of 14s.
I have the character sheet right here. He has 16 strength, 12 dex, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, 13 wisdom, 13 charisma.
And that in that character, you can actually see Ted play on Thursday nights. You guys play at 8 or 8:30 Eastern.
8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard, except this week, because this week is all Jasper's game week.
It is. So if you're looking for us on the regular live chat tomorrow, we won't be there. But if you go over to mini terrain domain,
hey, you got it right.
You can find me GMing for Jasper's Game Day. It's a charity. You can go donate money and stuff to keep people from committing suicide. It's a worthy cause.
Absolutely.
So, some point between now and then, I should probably write some material. I think they're only like 2-hour sessions though, so short.
Yeah, Via's looking forward to it. She's pimping it out over on the Discord stuff.
Oh, nice. A lot of pressure to perform over
there. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be I imagine it's gonna be a great time. So no live chat tomorrow, no mini terrain domain Dawnbringers game for me this week.
What are you gonna do it yourself? So
well, apparently I'm being pressured into doing more crafts, so I'm trying to begin angling what I'm doing with the Wizard's Tower for the next session. But also got some blog articles to write.
Pressured by who?
Actually, yeah, by you. You were like, "Yep, you set a precedent. It's gonna happen."
Yeah. People usually don't listen to me anyway. Smart ones don't anyway. Nerdy Buddha question: any advice for DMing players who have really high anxiety? I would start by asking them what kind of things cause them anxiety, and work outward from there, so that you can kind of like work within their comfort zone.
Yeah, and I would have a one-on-one conversation away from the group and just be like, look, what kind of things are an issue? What are your triggers? How can we avoid this? Do you want me to never give you the spotlight? Do you only want me to give you the spotlight when I've given you warning? And, work within the parameters that you're given, so that you've got the ability to help out this player so that they are involved in the game at the level in which they feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that is kind of the trick, is trying to get them to lay out the parameters, and then you can just kind of follow them and make sure you don't go outside of that. And and maybe over time they'll get more comfortable with the group, the scenario, the gaming, and become more comfortable.
Yeah, and we've gamed with all types. Nate the Nerdarchy, for many years, had combated anxiety for a while. And every once in a while, back when he was in my game regularly, he would still like, all right, having an issue tonight, not really going to do any role playing. I'll take part in combat, but that's about it. And it's like, okay,
or not show up. So like you could be even bad, like that. Yeah, I don't know. Everyone deals with it differently. I think most of us have anxiety to a certain extent or another, and I think in our hobby it's worse, especially like for people that kind of got into the hobby maybe a little further back, like me and Ted, because you're probably outsiders, and something like D&D actually would welcome pretty much anybody. So it became like this haven or refuge for outsiders. So you would get more people that would have problems like that, I feel like. But also on the downside is back then it wasn't really addressed or dealt with the same way, and there was definitely more of a stigma to it, where now we're better as people, I guess, and you can kind of talk about it and work through it as a group. Where before you might have been ostracized, or it would paint a target on your back.
Yeah. So like, if you've got issues, talk to people and, figure out what's going to make it easier, for, all involved. And, this is supposed to be a group game and we want, it to be, acceptable and fun for everybody.
So, Davo, so Ted, how's the Mogwai idea going?
Well, that game hasn't happened yet, but I have definitely have the notes written down that I'm going to do that. We've only had a week since we brought that up. Um, so but it is definitely going to happen at some point. I like Dave's idea of working the goblins in and then having to make the players deal with it, and then once that's dealt with, then they'll find the creature, and the creature is going to spawn goblins, and it's going to be hysterical.
Doug also brings up the idea of the X card. Yeah, that's actually a great idea because you can probably find a lot of information on that as well. Possibly also from people that are more qualified than ourselves to speak on the matter. Megan Connolly, Dr. Megan Connolly, you can find her on Twitter probably if you search Megan Connolly. She's actually, I forget if it's psychiatrist or psychologist, whichever one that can probably prescribe drugs. I think so. She's that one. Um, and she has like a whole like Twitch channel and YouTube channel that's kind of based around that, and she uses D&D in her actual practice as well. So that would probably be a great resource.
So any last questions? Because I got to actually be running soon.
Yep, this is your chance to ask. Yeah, actually, I was going to say I'm actually surprised that you had notes for the Mogwai game.
Dude, I love that idea, and given how they reacted when there was an extra goblin, I was like, yeah, that's gonna go over really fun. So, and since it's mostly kids, I think it'll be amusing.
I yes, Doug, thank you for dropping the link in there as well, and that link as well. Um, I almost want to write that adventure now as an actual written adventure. I mean, we haven't done any full blown adventures in a long time, but that sounds like that would be a really fun one to write. I don't know how you would work it into like a standard D&D game where like you run a game where it would probably work really well for. I run a game where it would work really well for because we know our players
Right.
and they're all about that kind of stuff.
But to the average adventuring party who's not collecting pets or liking the adorable critter, how do you deal with it?
Or friendly to goblins, or goblin friendly. So
Yeah.
yeah, so how do you write that in a way that makes it a part of the adventure? The only thing I can think of is you have to tie it to a location or NPC that is not the players,
Right.
that you then connect to them, and so they get introduced, and they get introduced in a neutral or friendly environment, and then like there you can do it one of two ways. One is for whatever reason they show up, friendly environment, it goes on and starts happening. The other thing is you could do it kind of like the starter set Stranger Things does, and goes, here's an NPC. You all know this NPC, right? Whether it's been introduced before or not.
Right.
But you reiterate that this is someone that you know and you've been summoned. However, maybe even include a section where you can go, all right, each you can tell us how you know this NPC or something along those lines. Um,
I think I could brainstorm some ideas and get you started.
Yes, Davo, goblins playing pranks around town causing trouble. Try and find the source. The only thing is though, like if you're trying to introduce the goblins as not something to murder, because typically you go goblins playing pranks around town, and then the party's like, okay, do I see a goblin? Yes.
I kill it.
I kill it. How many more of these little buggers do I have to kill before there's no more goblins causing pranks around town? I mean, granted, you would still have the factor of that. You know, they haven't gotten rid of the source because there's this cat running around town, and every time it gets wet, it springs off more of them. But I think it's a little more fun in this scenario that we originally talked about for the kids game.
I would agree. So catch us here next week. Same Nerdarchy time, and till next time,
Stay nerdy.
stay nerdy.